What's up, guys? It's Reynad back, and today I've got some sweet filler for you. We're going to be doing a Q&A session where I'm going to answer some of your questions that I haven't answered yet online. We pulled them from Reddit, YouTube, social media, anywhere we can find them. And yeah, if you want your question read on future videos like this, make sure to sub, follow, comment everywhere. We'll find you. Alright, so on Reddit, Random Tower of Games says no hand management. I'm not sure about this, so here we are. In the last video, we saw players buy items from a central pile using money and then place items on their board with Overflow. What about the hand? The player has no hand management, only items in play. Well, right now in the current build, there's only 2 zones. That's right, there's no hand in the current build of the game, but we are considering adding one. So right now, there's just really 2 zones where things are. Either stuff is in play on your board, or it's in the store. And in order to buy something, you just drag it from the store to your board, and it goes into play right away. But yeah, we're considering changing this to find some way to multiplicatively add more options and decision making for our players, but we'll get into that in a later update video that I think will be pretty interesting for you guys. All right, Michael Wayland says, so I watched something I don't quite follow. Are there no more classes or unique choices for each player before the game? So like both players go into the game and they start choosing from the middle bazaar area, thanks. So classes are definitely still in the game. Like before you play, you gotta pick your class. Are you gonna play as Vanessa, or are you gonna play as Mac? Depending on who you pick, different cards will show up for you in the store. What we used to have is we just showed the store cards all the time. So you'd see like a row of cards that your opponent could buy, you'd see the row of cards that you could buy simultaneously. We wanted to kind of consolidate this. We basically just decided to show both players' stores in the same row. So on your opponent's turn, when they're in the middle of buying, that's when their store options roll out. Merchant comes down, you see their stores for their class, and then on your turn, the merchant rolls out the rug for you, maybe a different merchant, and those items would be unique to you. So basically, yeah, the game definitely still has classes. It's a big part of it. It's most of the way we make money when we introduce new classes in the game and you guys buy them. Frixinator says, please make the board interactive. Basically, he's saying, wants us to lean into toys like Hearthstone has, stuff that you can play with, little fidget spinners in digital form, and I couldn't agree more. I think that was a brilliant thing that Hearthstone did that really helped players stay entertained during the opponent's turn when they can't really do anything. And I'm surprised more games didn't lean into it, especially games like, like Runeterra, which leaned into like cosmetic monetization more. But yeah, since day one for several years now, it's always been the plan. We're definitely gonna have a very interactive board. We're actually choosing what toys we put in our game based on the ones that are the most interactive. We don't just want pretty stuff to sit there and sparkle and do like one thing when it's clicked. We'd rather do like, I don't know, a simple keyboard where you can play your own song with notes, or it's just something more interactive and unique. I will say though, I think a big part of the reason other card games kind of steered away from doing toys like this is that a lot of them switched to like a priority system. So what I mean by that is, like in Hearthstone, you only play the game for like 50% of the time, right? Just your turn. And on your opponent's turn, you can't really do anything. So a game like Hearthstone has a need for toys to keep your attention a little bit more than a game like Runeterra or Artifact or Gwent, which has more of like a priority system. When you have to click OK like every 5 seconds, there's like less dead time that you need to fill with toys. And I think that's a big part of the reason a lot of those games steered away from it. Somebody asked, what if the items had a health number instead of a durability value? This is actually just kind of semantics. Health and durability are just words that we use interchangeably. They mean the same thing. Cards have one number. That number is how much health they have, how much durability they have, whatever you want to call it. If the number goes to 0, the item breaks. Deuces on Reddit says, he has a phases question. After the new update dropped, we were introduced to a phase of the game called the buying phase, in which you cannot attack but can only buy instead. A question was born in my mind. Will we be able to attack whenever we want, like in Hearthstone, or will the turn be determined into phases like MTG, upkeep, buy, attack, into turn? Yeah, so to address like that part of it, you can attack anytime you want. When your turn starts, you can just do stuff in whatever order you want. When you want to buy, you can just initiate the buy by hitting the buy button. When you want to attack, you just click your item to attack. The only time you can't attack is if you're already in the middle of buying, but that's pretty short. You just drag a card, whichever one you want, and then you can attack again. That's not to say it won't change though. Honestly, this stuff is all pretty up in the air right now, and Ben and I are talking about it pretty much every day, and we plan on making some big changes in the near future, so we'll make sure we do some update videos for you guys about that. And yeah, in the second part of your question, you asked about having a break on certain rounds where players maybe can't attack each other. That's definitely something we're considering too, trying to kind of figure out if that's like a good way to mitigate snowballing or give players like some time to rebuild their stuff after it's destroyed. It's all on the table yet, we just haven't made any firm decisions of that yet. Physicism says, I like the item size mechanic, but will the item's visual size always represent how powerful it is, not how big the object would be? For example, a very powerful ring would take up more space than a low-tier plate body. It's a great question. So when we decided to do the size mechanic, we didn't just want to use it like a mana system, we wanted it to make sense thematically. So we have like a hidden rule when we design cards, where small items are things that you can generally hold with one hand, medium items are things that you can hold with two hands, and then large items are just like things that you can't carry, like buildings or trebuchets or whatever, things like that. So yeah, right now the size of the item in real life does correspond to the size of the item in the game. Chris says, I was wondering if you could talk about the idea of cards not having a cost. It seems really weird to me. A game about a bazaar has nothing to do with buying or selling. Yeah, definitely. So it has a lot to do with buying or selling. You literally just buy every turn, so I would challenge that. I don't think that you need money in order to have buying. I do agree that it's a little strange that we don't have money in the game right now. We started with money. We always had money for like 2 years. And we realized that when players were going to buy cards in the store, they were focusing on not the right effect for their strategy. Instead, they were focusing on like how cost effective each card was. And whatever card was the most cost effective, that would be the one they would just go and buy. So, for us, we really wanted to put the focus of the game on the effect that the card did, because that at the end of the day is kind of what defines your strategy. And we thought that standardizing the cost of all cards was a way to do that. And we can make all the cards cost like 3 gold or something, but why not just remove gold altogether? And that's kind of what we did and where we ended up. I will say that up until this point, we've basically been fixing issues with the old build of the game and making it better step by step. And every decision we made always made the game simpler. We wouldn't move forward with things that complicated it further. We really wanted to get down to the bare bones. So right now, what we've shown you guys in these update videos, this is basically like the complexity floor of the game. It's like the simplest it's ever been in development. But the next stage of development is probably going to mean we make the game more complicated. Now that we have the bare bones elements that we're happy with, now we can add a little bit of complexity in order to make the game more interesting. And in the process of adding complexity, there's a good chance we reintroduce money. So yeah, just stay tuned on update videos. Just because there's no money this week doesn't mean there won't be money next week. Starstorm says, does it still make sense to limit the market to 3 cards for each player? Now that we no longer have decks, we can only get new cards to our hand from the market, and each turn only having 3 choices may or may not be enough. Thank you for the update, love the change. Hey, that's a good observation, man. Look, to be honest, we're thinking there are too few options right now per turn in a game, and we're looking at ways of expanding that. And like I said, that might involve things like money. Money goes a long way towards adding more options and different permutations and things you can buy. And we're looking at, potentially adding resources or changing some fundamental rules that basically introduce more choices. The only thing we're really careful of is choice paralysis. We don't just want to put 20 items on the screen and make players read every single one of them to choose what they want. So the question is like, what's the sweet spot? Also, mechanically, do we want items to show more items in the stores? Like if you bought a card, basically, could that card say as a mechanic, whenever you go to buy, there's one more option in the store? Is that fun? Is that interesting? These are still things we're trying to figure out. So yeah, the whole like 3 options every turn is not a firm rule. There's a good chance we even have it scale throughout a game. There's still a lot of ways we're considering doing it, but in general, I agree with you. We do need the players to have lots of options, and we're looking at ways of adding more. Will says, is there any way of earning interest on your money? Runeterra's spell mana allows slower decks to not be punished for not having early plays. Something like that in the Bazaar could be interesting. The player only buys 2 things in the buy phase because they never want to start saving aggressively for a big purchase later, for example. So right now, we don't really have interest in our game because we don't have money in our game, but we're definitely thinking about adding money. And if we do add money, one of the big questions is, should it be persistent? Like if I have 5 gold and I spend 3 of it in a turn, should I have 2 more gold that carries over till next turn? Or should it just disappear at the end of the turn like mana in most games? Still great questions, still stuff we're considering, and we'll hopefully not just figure that out soon, but explain it to you guys in an update video. Fortwin Tea Time says, instead of a discrete buy phase, have you considered something more like the back and forth mechanics in Runeterra? Maybe you only get X number of moves per round, and buying and attacking are both moves. So this is a really interesting suggestion, because there's actually like 2 different ways to interpret it. If you're suggesting limiting the number of actions a player can make in a turn, I mean, the best system for doing that is mana, because there's so many different ways that you can spend it, you know? Like if we were to have a game where we just rigidly say you can do 3 actions per turn, that's a little less exciting than saying, oh, you have 9 mana, and each action takes an average of 3. So maybe you do the action that's really expensive and it uses all your mana, or you do a bunch of little actions that just use a little bit at a time. You have more different options and ways to break it up with that kind of system, and it's also areas that we're exploring right now. When we make any decisions there, we'll kind of let you guys know right away in an update. I will say though, if what you mean is the priority system where you pass back and forth between 2 players, each doing, you know, 1 action at a time or just a couple actions, that's something instinctively at least I'm against. And the reason might sound kind of dumb for you guys, but I want this game to be good for streaming. I think part of what makes a game enjoyable in this day and age is having a community of content creators around it. Because if I'm gonna play a game religiously, like most live service games, I'm gonna not just play it, I'm gonna wanna consume content around it. So if I have free time, I'm gonna pull up a Twitch streamer that plays the game, or I'm gonna watch a YouTube video, or I'll read the patch notes, or I'll read meta reports. And we want this characteristic in our game because we want players to, you know, really play it as like a lifestyle or a hobby, or really get into it. So to that end, I really want the game to be good for streaming. And if you compare a priority system in like a game like Artifact or Gwent or Runeterra, where players pass priority back and forth after doing an action, if you compare that system to something like Hearthstone, where a player just has full autonomy and then they pass the turn and 50% of the game is just waiting. Between those 2 systems, like Hearthstone's and the priority ones, Hearthstone's is actually way better for streaming. This is why like Magic is a very hard game to stream, because of the priority system. I have to always click OK every 3 seconds, and this forces the broadcaster to always be attentive on the gameplay. And this is actually just about the worst way to make content. The best content creators on average talk as little about their game as possible, I think, unless like the game is their thing, right? If they're like an educational channel or a pro player or whatever. If you just want to have an entertaining show, it's good to have the game be there, but to talk about it as little as possible. It's a weird dynamic. So basically, we want to give content creators a good pacing throughout the game, time to talk with their community, their viewers, and when we, you know, just let a player do everything they want on their turn and then just pass it to the other guy and look away from the monitor, like that's a powerful thing to support. And basically, yeah, I know it's not gameplay reasons, but that's kind of the reason I'm leaning away from like a priority-based system. Joshua Kim says, so in the overflow model, what happens when you need to push out 1 size worth of stuff, but only have 2 size items? Do items get cut in half? In the overflow system where you push stuff off the table, items do not get cut in half. If any part of it gets pushed off, the whole thing gets deleted. I will say though, we're changing that overflow system. We're not really happy with how it feels, and we're switching to something a little bit more fluid, partly because of your guys' comments. A lot of you guys are saying how weird it is that there's no money in the bazaar. We're finally at a stage of game design where it makes sense to reintroduce it, and honestly, just selling items back seems like the most natural way to get rid of your own stuff. You know, why would you push it off the table for no value? It doesn't feel that good, so yeah, there's a good chance we change it. Matthew Griffin says, thanks for the update. To try out these rule changes, do you have alpha dev builds made or playing IRL with fake cards? Either way, it'd be sick to see an example game played out in a future video. So we definitely have dev builds. We've had dev builds for years. It's just that when we play with them, it's pretty much just gray rectangles on the screen. So unless you're one of the developers that like made the cards, it's really hard to follow for like an external observer. You would just see rectangles slightly shifting around. So yeah, pretty much for that reason, we decided to kind of hold off on showing you guys example games, at least for another month or 2. until after we finish our vertical slice. And then at that point, we'll have something very presentable for you guys with, a bit more polished graphics, just so, at least there's pictures and it's easier to follow. We'll definitely show you guys example games as soon as we can, though. Miguel Cardoso says, I like the idea, but when you buy a card, do you only play it once or does it shuffle somewhere? So right now, there's no hand and there's no deck. So when you buy a card, it just goes straight into play. It goes from the store to the game board. Jetdar says, this Ben guy seems very attractive and I would love for him to become my wife's boyfriend. I got bad news for you, Jetdar. She'll never leave me. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a fun update video. Make sure to comment, make sure to follow, sub, just any ideas that you guys have from previous update videos, make sure to let us know. And yeah, we'll be looking to do more of these types of videos in the future, because honestly, it's a lot easier than typing essays. We'll see you guys next Friday for another update of The Bazaar.